Good evening, everyone. Great to see you guys again, and welcome back to the Piano Star Masterclass. I'm your host, Brian Lin. And of course, another component of our Piano Star series is the Piano Star competition that we just launched a few weeks ago. So be sure to check that out as well. The deadline is October 25th. During the live stream, you can ask us any questions in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. Today, I have the pleasure of a special guest and a co-host with me, my friend Sherry Kim, who was also a Piano Star Masterclass teacher, and she'll share the stage with me today and be co-hosting this show with me. Welcome, Sherry.
Hi. So today we are going to have our guest teacher, Dr. Loan Lin, and she is the first prize winner and recipient of the Baroque Prize at the 2012 San Antonio International Piano Competition. She also taught private and group lessons at Eastman's Community Music School and served as a secondary piano lesson instructor at Yale School of Music and lecturer at the Nazareth School of Music. And today she'll be discussing the top 5 tips for teaching online lessons. It's an honor to have you on the show, Loan.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian and Sherry. It's a pleasure for me to share my experience of online teaching. So I chose this topic because I think it's a very relevant topic considering the global pandemic situation right now across the world. By no means, I think I'm an expert of this topic. I'm just like everyone, I'm learning as I go. And today's talk isn't about the latest and the best technology equipment from microphones or speakers, etc. So this talk is more about sharing my personal experience of online teaching, what I have learned from it, and tips that have helped me not to retain my original studio, but actually outgrow my studio size during this challenging time. So I want to share my experience with especially teachers or students who have postponed their music lessons because they're worried about not being able to master the online lesson format. Although remote teaching isn't exactly the same as in-person teaching, there are still many advantages to it if we embrace it. So to begin, I think generally there are 2 types of online students. One is our current students who live in the same proximity as us. They have had to switch to online lessons due to the unexpected COVID-19 situation, which made in-person instruction unsafe and nearly impossible. The second type of the online students are the ones that don't actually live in the same proximity as us. So they could be living in another state or a few hours away or even in another country. If we get comfortable with online teaching, we would actually be able to expand our studio size exponentially. In a way, online teaching greatly gets rid of the physical limitation. If there is a keyboard or a piano, a stable internet connection, a device that has a camera, whether or not it's a webcam or your phone or tablet, and maybe a headphone for better sound quality, we could, in theory, be teaching piano lessons anywhere in the world to students who live anywhere in the world. That being said, of course, you have to calculate the time difference. Okay, but is that really a theory or is it actually possible? I actually have a few friends, a few stories from my colleagues. One of my colleagues told me that her student was recently on a road trip with her family, and when the lesson time comes, she actually has a keyboard in the car with them, and she basically just had the lesson in the car while they were on the road trip. And
wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then another colleague of mine who was very forward thinking, so she told me that before the whole COVID-19 situation started, she used to teach online lessons during snow days. And I think that's brilliant because she told me that it was a breeze to transition her studio into online teaching because her students were already very familiar with that form of lessons. And
that's nice.
Yeah, that's really brilliant because usually we would, back in the day, we would just kind of reschedule the lesson or make it up. Yeah. So for her, then she doesn't have to redo her schedule because she would just teach online lesson instead of in-person lesson. And so for the majority of us who may or may not have thought of the idea, but either way, we didn't really implement it into an actual activity, we have had to do that in late February and early March. So speaking from my own personal experience, it's actually not just a hypothetical theory that you could be anywhere in the world and teaching any students somewhere else in the world. So I've recently relocated back to Asia for a new job appointment, and nearly half of my studio in America asked for the possibility to continue studying with me while I'm in Asia. So think about it for a second now. If we haven't been forced to accept the novel idea of having music lessons online a few months ago, I highly doubt that continuing studying with me online would ever be a request coming from my students, because traditionally piano lessons are taught in person, and for music major students, they have to travel, they have to audition and physically move to another city or even another country in order to study with a particular professor that they want to learn from. So it would be almost impossible to fathom the possibility of continuing the lessons in any other non-traditional ways, forms, or shapes. So currently now I'm teaching about 12 or 11 students from America. I just finished quarantine in Taipei, but I'm teaching a few students in China, about 10 students in China. So it's kind of really amazing that I'm able to, I was in a quarantine hotel and my family let me rent the digital piano for me. So I was actually able to teach piano lessons literally wherever I was, and with the help of internet connection and all the other equipment that I described.
That's so cool. It's like you have you have to deal with all these different time zones, probably, like students being all over the world, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I really don't think even us, with our probably more familiar with technology, we wouldn't have been able to really think that it's a real possibility a few months ago. So I think online teaching definitely has its advantage.
So have you started online teaching just since the pandemic, or have you done any online teaching before this?
So I did a few online teaching before, but it wasn't like a full studio like this. So it would be a few lessons that people asked me to help them prepare for like auditions or, competitions or exams, things like that. So it'd be more like we just use Skype or FaceTime. I didn't really set up the cameras or, invest in microphone or anything like that. It was more like chatting, and I'm giving them tips. But I seriously got into it since I think the end of February. Yeah. So like I know that I believe that still online lesson cannot 100% replace the in-person lesson, because especially with advanced students, you know what I mean? Like, you both are amazing pianists. There are so many subtleties in the tone and the technique that we just can't really 100% reproduce. And also the atmosphere of live, having a lesson with someone sitting there, or live anything. We all miss people. It's very special. Yeah. Okay, so I want to share 5 tips that I've learned. So the very first tip, I think probably may be hopefully interesting to music teachers, is recruiting students online. So the most important thing I would like to know as a teacher is, how do we recruit new students online during this challenging time? The first little tiny tip under this umbrella, I think it's very important to have a website. Some teachers like to use Facebook, fan page, or groups instead of building a website, and that's free. So I think they are all excellent options as long as there's a convenient way to introduce yourself and display contact information. It would be much more convenient for potential students to reach out to you. So think about it sort of like a virtual business card. You don't need to include a lot on the website if you don't want to. A few pages to be included in the website would probably be a brief biography or a long one, up to you, describing yourself or your studio. And teaching philosophy is also great to have, particularly if you want to advertise your studio rather than your performance schedule. And recordings of your performances or your students' performances, I think that's a great addition, because it's always better to see videos or even images rather than just reading words. It kind of gives the prospective students or the parents a feeling or an idea about you, seeing you on the pictures or seeing in the videos interacting with others, other students or other teachers.
It's like it makes it more like legitimate, right?
Yeah,
like you have photos and videos.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, one last very, very important thing is your contact information. You don't want to have your studio built and then people have to Google search you a million other times to try to, oh, I finally found her or him. So that's number one important thing is your contact information. So once you have your website, fan page, or group set up, you can start advertising your piano studio. Other than the traditional posting flyers, which probably isn't the most effective idea right now, we're always just in and out of an indoor space and just leave, get what we need and leave. You can share your website, fan page, Facebook group, or any other URLs to Facebook groups that are in your region or neighborhood. So let's say if you live in Boston, you can type where the Facebook groups are, you can just type Boston, or you can even be more specific, your exactly zip code. Usually there are lots of Facebook neighborhood groups that would have people who live in the same proximity, and then they help each other out through various things. And you could just post your URL and briefly introduce yourself. You're a piano teacher, where you went to school, and you have opening your studio.
Cool.
You can, and you can also post your link on your personal social media, like Facebook or LinkedIn page, or you can also email your URL to your friends and families and let them know that you have space in your studio. And in addition to that, there are actually many online platforms that one can use to advertise their studios, which I found very helpful. So lessons.com, Thumbtack, Lesson Phase are all three that I have had personal successful experiences with. And each of those platforms work a little differently. For example, Thumbtack and Lessons.com are merely a platform where you can have a page to introduce your music studio, and people who go to Thumbtack or Lessons.com, they are looking for piano lessons. They'll be able to discover your page depending on the search criteria, such as how far they are from your location, the age of the students, etc. And from there, the students and the teachers can connect with one another and decide on the form of the lesson. So Thumbtack is more that the students will be the one contacting you, and then you can decide whether or not you want to respond. And each different website also charges a little bit differently. But honestly, I think the charge that they do charge you in comparison to the lesson fee, it's actually very reasonable, and I don't think it's too much at all.
Like it's worth it because you end up getting the student and
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Which one would you say was your favorite place to advertise, or which one did you get the most students from?
Yeah, actually, it would be between Thumbtack and Lesson Phase. So I got Thumbtack and Lessons.com. Sorry, Thumbtack and Lessons.com. So between these two and my own website, when I started getting like lots of requests for online lesson, I had a spreadsheet and I wanted to see where the source was coming from. I think maybe that has something to do with me just being freshly out of DMA school. I'm still used to I'm going to collect the data and stuff.
It's very useful.
Yeah, so I see that my own website is about half, and then the other half, I would get slightly more from the Thumbtack, but then it's very close to the lessons.com. So
that's amazing. So is it what about word of mouth in comparison?
Yes,
because usually it seems like word of mouth is the most popular for most people, but is that not the case?
Yeah. Oh no, it is, because that was actually my third tip. The third one under this umbrella. You read my mind. But let me actually go back to explain those platforms a little bit more, because I feel like that might be something that private studio teachers would be really interested in.
Yeah.
So then from Thumbtack and Lessons.com, they don't actually have a a video conference platform that you could actually use. So then you and the students, that you guys would have to decide and figure out which platform you both want to use. So it's more just kind of like a page where they display to the students who are interested in that type of lessons or service. And then Lessons Space work actually a little differently. They also provide you with the platform that they take care of the payment. They require the students to prepay for the lessons. So that way the teachers don't have to worry about that. And yeah, that was very interesting for me to learn. And then I actually did open a page there, but then I am not 100% sure how it shows up because it seems like it's a little bit, the search engines a bit different than the Thumbtack and the lessons.com. So I didn't get as many requests from that one. But I really like the idea that they take care of the payments in advance.
Is it every lessons payment they take? Like, do you have lessons on that platform, or is it just the first lesson?
Sorry, what did you mean?
Is it so? You said that they take prepaid payments from the students, right?
Yeah,
do you have lessons on that platform forever?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah. So if you get the students on that platform, they expect you to have the lesson on the platform because they take a slight percentage of every lesson.
What percentage is that?
Well, I don't have the exact number. I don't want to misquote them.
Okay.
Maybe I'll look it up later and I can
Sure.
email to you and you can share it with
Sure.
other people.
Sounds good.
But I remember that the percentage is also very reasonable. They have two different ways. So if you bring your own students to that platform, the percentage is lower. Whereas if the students find you on that platform and you guys use their platform to have lessons, the percentage is higher. So they have these two different ways. Okay, so no matter which platform you use, they almost serve as a replacement for your websites or your Facebook fan page or group. But however, I still believe having your own website would be better. It's like a, like I said, virtual business. Yeah. And then last but not least, the word of mouth that Sherry was mentioning. So that's very popular for traditional format. And it's the same way in the online lesson. When a student joins my lessons during the pandemic time, a lot of time that once the few lessons go well, the parents would say, oh, she or he has other siblings, can they also take lessons? So the most number that I have in this pandemic was a family of 3. It was so cute because the father and his 2 daughters were taking lessons with me. And one of the daughters was actually taking lessons twice per week, and they were really dedicated. And then also sometimes they would introduce the lessons to their friends, so I think it's all relevant. Now the big tip number 2 is, what do we deal with brand new beginners when they are sending us requests for online lessons? So one question that I frequently get asked by a parent is that my son or daughter is maybe like 8, 9, sometimes 5, 6 years old, and he or she has never taken piano lessons before. I would really like to sign him or her up, but then I'm not sure if the lessons will work. So what do we do with that situation? My first response would be, let's have a short trial lesson. And I would recommend the trial lesson to be a minimum of 20 minutes. And I think the most important thing during a trial lesson is to make sure the student responds well to online instruction. So for some younger students, when they receive online instruction, it's like watching TV for them. They're not able to really connect and interact with the teacher and the instruction. So if that happens during the trial lesson, I would typically recommend the students to wait a bit, wait until the COVID situation kind of eases down and we can have in-person lessons. And unlike the in-person instruction, teaching online relies solely on verbal instruction and videos to demonstrate the movements. For younger kids who are brand new beginners, they have to be able to see exactly the keys that you are playing right in front of them, like in-person lessons, not on the computer screen, in order to make sense in their minds. You'll be able to quickly figure it out when you run a short trial with the students. So, for example, let's say explaining middle C. When you're in person, you can just find a middle C and show it to your student, and then they can find the middle C because you just played that middle C. Whereas in the online lesson, if you have a camera, which again later I'm going to talk about a camera setup, even if you show the overhead full 88 view, having the sense of where the middle seat is for a complete brand new beginner could be a little confusing depending on the students. And in terms of the actual activity to do during the trial lesson, it really isn't too different from what would you do in your trial lesson for the first lesson. You could introduce the keyboard, describe hand position and sitting posture, and some listening exercises with clap back, black and white keys, the grouping of the keys, 3 black keys, 2 black keys. The most important thing, again, is how they respond to online instruction. And after the short trial lesson, if the students respond well, you can start one-on-one lessons or group lessons if you happen to have a few brand new beginners. So during the summer, I actually held an online summer camp for brand new beginners, which I found very effective. So basically, it was a 5-day session, and each class had no more than 6 people, because if you have too many students in one class, personally, I don't believe it will be effective. And we met every single day for 45 minutes, 5 days in a row. We covered all the basics in 5 days, from how to sit at the piano all the way to the basic note reading, like the landmark notes and a few notes between the landmark notes. And on the last day, we had a mini performance session where the students would perform 1 to 2 short pieces that they learned during the camp live on Zoom, not pre-recorded. I use Zoom. Yeah, it was really fun. And then you know how on Zoom we can click the clapping icon or thumbs up. So I encourage all of my students to do that, and they really enjoyed it. And most of the students, they were like between the age of 5 to 7, actually. So they're quite young. And they were able to follow along just fine. Oh, but I do require the parent to sit nearby. So if they get lost, the parent can help right away.
Speaking of Zoom performances, the competition that we have features exactly that. We have during the final round of our competition, there's going to be it's all going to be a Zoom live performance.
Oh, wow.
So I think that differs from other competition, and it appears that your kids had a lot of fun doing that as well.
Yeah, it was really fun. And actually for them, I don't think they got too nervous because, like they were already used to practicing or having group classes with the computer. So for them, it's just kind of another lesson, sort of, it's not like, oh, suddenly there's 100 people watching you. Yeah.
So just to clarify, like all 6 of these students, were they, it wasn't like live, right? It was like virtual, or like how
it was
was
virtual. The online camp was, it's online camp, so it was virtual. It was all virtual, yeah. And then so how I basically, the reason why I chose the Zoom is because I like when you share the screen, you have the option to share the audio, original sound from your computer. So because I also include short composer biographies, I want them kind of like music appreciation. I want them to feel more related to the classical music that they're learning. So I would feature a few, biographies of famous composers. I did the Bach, and I did Beethoven, and I did Mozart. And so when I was sharing the recording with them, they're able to hear the sound, not pick up from my own microphone, but how it would sound like on my computer. So I think that's awesome that Zoom has that. I've tried some other platforms, and they, I didn't have that option. And so in terms of activities, I included ear training, quiz time, composer highlights that I just told you about, and little mini composition sessions. And I also assigned homework for the students each day. That includes a short written portion and to practice the pieces that we work on that day. Because otherwise, by the time the 5th day comes, they might forget about what they learned, right? And then after the session, I also emailed them a short video clip with overhead views of me playing the pieces that we worked on to remind them the hand positions and the notes so they can work on while they watch that video.
How do you do the overhead shooting?
I will tell you. I will also share the picture.
Okay, got it. But just to remind you, we only have about 5 minutes left. So if we can squeeze everything in, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Yeah, so quickly sum this up is that you also want to remember to ask your students to mute themselves during the classes, because otherwise you'll be chaotic. And I think this is a good idea to have if you have a full studio, but you still want to teach these beginners. And you can just group them up together and teach all the basic. And obviously they have to switch to in a one-on-one lesson after they reach the basic, note reading level, because everyone will start to progress differently. Now, number 3, the basic setup and the equipment. Rather than worrying about having fancy cameras and setup, we can actually create great setups without breaking the banks. So in terms of the view angles, I found that having minimum of 3 views to be very helpful. Some people add the 4th view, which shows the pedal. I didn't have that. So basically, my 3 views, I use my laptop, and I connect 2 Logitech webcams to my laptop. And I use my camera on the laptop when I talk to students. I used one webcam for the overhead view that covers all 88 keys, so they can see what notes I'm playing and what finger number I'm using. And then another one is the side angle that sits a little bit higher and further than the laptop, so you can show them your arm and wrist movements. And I found that to be really, really helpful. And if you don't want to spend the money to buy a webcam, you can actually search on the App Store Epoch Cam. So that's basically an app that you can use your phone and turn your phone into a webcam. So if you don't want to buy a webcam, that's definitely an option. And if you want to buy like the full version, it's about $8. So I think that's totally worth it. And then the sound, of course, we have to use USB mics, and they are reasonably priced. So I recommend Yeti USB mic, and my dear professor, Mr. Hong Kwan Chen, he recommended a JLab Talk Pro to me. I haven't tried it yet. I'm sure it's amazing. And headphone is a must, because otherwise the students will hear the feedback from your own speaker. And I also, one last optional equipment that I found very helpful is the iPad. It really, really saved me time, and I use Fourscore to organize all my students' music, to annotate and share the markup score with them after the lessons. Let me quickly share the setup. So I actually use a digital piano just because you can connect the sound to your laptop. So the sound quality is good if you want to. And then also piano sometimes gets out of tune. So this is a picture. Can you see? Not this one. I wanted to share the other picture. Can you see this one?
Yeah, yes, I can. Okay, you want me to show it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a Yamaha YDP 144. I have my laptop here, and then I have a light, and then one webcam, and then connect to another webcam. So actually, it would look, the overhead view would look like, can you guys see this picture?
You probably will need to share it again. Okay,
let me share. Share screen. Okay, so this one, can you see? So the overhead view, this one's slightly tilted. I probably bumped into it a little bit, but you actually can see all 88 keys, and I found that really, really helpful. Can you guys see this one?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let me zoom up a little bit. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. And then in terms of my students' performance or lessons angle, I asked them to place that whatever device that they're using a little bit higher, so I can see the side view, but also clearly see their finger number. So the picture, can you guys see this one?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is kind of the view that I asked. So I can see exactly what finger number they're using. I can also see if their wrist is dropping, their shoulders are going up, or anything like that. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do with my setup. And one last tiny thing that I want to share if we're running out of time is basically about planning and motivating your students during the online learning. And I will just share one thing from the few things I've prepared. So I decided to have a virtual notebook, especially for my younger students or beginners, because sometimes they will forget what to practice. So basically I use Google Doc, and I shared a Google Doc with them. And what it looks like is like this. I will share. So I've included a few portions, and let me show you. So I'll show you one beginner adult and a beginner child student. So this one is the child student. Let me see. Can you guys see here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically it has a few portions. What I do is I would have the date, right? And then the lessons, I typed out a lot of work after each lesson. I type out exactly what they have to work on. And then the theory homework here, they will finish their theory homework, they can upload it here. And then I can check their assignments right from there. And then I have the practice diaries, and the students would write to me what their thoughts are. And I give them virtual sticker. And then I would answer their questions, and way to go for practicing 5 days in a week. Keep up the good work. So I really find that really helpful, especially for young kids to, they really feel like they're interacting with the teacher throughout the week, even though it's a new instrument that they are learning. And yeah, I really enjoy doing that.
Wow, that is so neat. I mean, you seem very organized, and that is such a creative use of like digital tech, like what we have available to this day. So kudos to you. And now, I mean, I think it's such a no-brainer that you have so much success with your studio and how you're able to get all these online students, because what you're doing seems to be really working. So that's so great.
Thank you.
So I guess now it's time for our masterclass. So I believe we have our first student backstage, and his name is Stephen Shu. He is 10 years old, and he will be playing for us Chopin's Minute Waltz, which is Opus 64, number 1. So we're just going to be like kind of backstage. It'll be just you two. If you guys need any help, just let us know.
Okay.
All right.
Hi. Hi. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Good.
Good. Okay. So go ahead. I'm ready. Great, wonderful job. You did such a great job. This is not an easy waltz, and the fact that you're able to play this so well with, play by memory too, so well and so eloquent. It's so wonderful. Great job, and congrats to your teacher. Okay, so do you know the backstory of this waltz? Do you know the nickname?
I think it was. I think I do. Was it because he saw someone because he saw his dog chasing his tail?
Yes, I don't think that was his dog per se, but I think it's his friend's dog. But exactly. So the dog is chasing its tail nonstop. Have you ever seen a dog do that in real life?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's really fun, right? So it's like they think the tail is other entity, and then they just keep circling back and forth nonstop, and sometimes they would bark actually. So the reason why it gets that nickname, it's because we keep having this thing. It keeps turning. So one thing, you did that pretty well, but one thing that would make it sound like this motion never stopped is to avoid having a downbeat being accented. So sometimes I heard a little bit, I know it's easy to accent the downbeat to keep track of the measures, but if we do that, it sounded almost like the dog is chasing the tail, but then every single time he would freeze for a split second. You know what I mean? So let's try to have it be a continuous circling and motion. And leggero, at the very beginning, you're supposed to be very light. Going all the way to the B flat. And on that B flat, you can just wait a tiny bit. So imagine if you like the story of the little dog, you can imagine here chasing, and when it reached the B flat, the dog jumped up a little bit, and then he kept on circling and chasing his tail again. Okay, so let's try that. So try to not have an accent on the downbeat of each measure. Okay, do you know what an accent means?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So go ahead. Okay, Stephen, that's wonderful. It's already sounding a little better. Just one tiny thing about the opening. So we start on A flat, and then we have a G natural, which actually is not part of the key, right? So I want the G natural to sound like it belongs to the A flat. It's coming out of the A flat. So what that means is I don't want it to sound, but can you hear the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the G needs to come out of the A flat. Let's try that one more time. Okay, that's better. So what you can do is you can make the A flat a little bit slightly longer. It's not a fermata, but so it's to prepare. If you just go it wouldn't be as effective, in my opinion. Let's try that one last time.
Okay.
Okay, great. That's very good. Now, that's so much better. One thing that I think you could work on throughout this mazurka is your left hand. Your right hand is excellent. You round so well, very clear. Have you practiced your left hand alone?
Yeah, I think I have.
You have? So if you say you think you have, that probably was a while ago, right? Yeah, okay, so I think you can continue to practice left hand alone because sometimes some of the chords didn't exactly come out, and because the speed is quite fast, and when the left hand has a hole, it's not too obvious, but it makes this piece all of a sudden sound a little bit incomplete. And left hand has a very important role for the waltz, it shows the beat 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we definitely want to make sure that all the chords and the bass notes of the left hand sound. So I am not going to pick on you to make you play the left hand by itself right now, but I think that would be a really good way to practice. And a few ways to practice the left hand is you also want to be thinking about the voicing of the chords. It's not just going to be so I would think it's down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? And then when you are playing, you want to be very clear with the primary beat being the first beat, and then the second and the third beats are a little bit lighter. So they are not all equal in terms of the weight and the feeling of the weight for the beats. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now let's talk a little bit about rubato. Have you ever used rubato in any other pieces before? Do you know what rubato means?
Is it like a pause?
A pause implies that it stops. So I think it's very similar, but not exactly, because when we have rubato, we don't actually stop the time. So when we have rubato, it's more like for Chopin's rubato, it's kind of like we're borrowing the time. So we borrow the time from later, and then we slow down, and then we have to speed up a little bit or return back to the tempo to return the borrowed time. So for example, I think a good place to have the rubato is when you have do you know that place that I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead and play that. Very good. You did that so naturally. You pick up so quickly. Okay, so let's talk about the phrase that you just started. How would you say this is different, the one that you just played, than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 measures before? You know, they sound very similar, right? But how is this time different?
Because the second one is higher.
Yes, that's definitely one of the differences. What else?
The first one is more deep.
More what?
The first one is like more. The first one has.
Oh, so you're talking about the notes. First one goes up to, yes.
And then
Yeah.
this one and the second one has.
Yes. So in terms of the register, both right hand and the left hand goes up. They are higher the second time. But I think one of the, those are great observations and they are important differences. But one of the very, very important differences is actually the left hand. So the first time we have, but the second time we actually have a dotted half note. And so we really want to hear what you want to think about is that the left hand is kind of a hint to make this part, these few measures, much more melodic, much more lyrical than the first time. Because the first time, left hand is just an accompaniment, bum, 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 of the waltz. But second time here, it has a second, kind of like a counterpoint or like a second melody. Da, da, da. So can we shape that? Together with the right hand also wants to feel a little bit more linear rather than vertical. Rather than, does that make sense? So let's start from, great, let's start from the first time. This one.
Okay.
Okay, great. I can really hear that you are bringing out the left hand melody. Be careful though when we are bringing out the left hand melody that we don't slow down the tempo. It was a little bit slower. And what finger number are you using starting from here with just the lowest note? Are you using 05? I can't really see.
Yeah, I'm using 5.
Yeah, so I would recommend you to use 5 and then 4 and then go to 5, 4. And it's because if you use that fingering, you can actually connect the bass line without breaking up. So you would actually be much more lyrical and much more vocal. Okay, so let's try that a little bit, see if it's comfortable.
Okay.
Let's do only the Stephen. Let's do only the left hand. Let's play only the left hand.
Okay.
Okay, very nice. But look at my hands very carefully. I don't want you to have any gap between the 5th finger on A and the 4th finger on the B flat. Rather than, because do you see that there is a legato, right? Do you see a slur from A going to the B flat to C to D flat? Do you have that on your music?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's under the marking, right? The notation. So don't have any gap between those dotted half notes in the bass line. Let's try once more, just the left hand.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. You know, obviously between the second and the third measure, when we have to move to C, it's a little bit more difficult to connect them. That's fine. But if you have at least 2 notes slur, da, 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 that would make a huge difference. Let's try one more time. You are almost there. That's it. That's it. Okay, let's try once more from where we have from there first with the right hand.
Okay.
Great job. How do you like it? Do you like that? How it's a little bit more different than the first time, more obviously?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
But
What?
the C and D are a little bit harder.
Yeah, I know, because you are not used to it, but with some practice, you will be able to get it just fine because you're already you're 90% there already. And I really like that you remember to take the rubato to the high F. So good job for that. Now, after that, we have the same statement again. So the last time here, it's actually not the last time, but if you think about the 2 of those statements before as one unit, then this one would be the last time because it happens again with the slur left hand. If we can make this last 2 statements to have a little bit of a different color, that would be better, especially at the very beginning. So like, just to make that a little bit softer, you can try it with a little bit softer color and see if you like it. So let's try maybe the time that you're taking rubato, and then after that, a new statement, a little bit softer entry.
Okay. Do I start from the first one?
Yeah, let's start from the first one.
Okay.
Okay, very good. You know, you can actually use una corda here if you want. Do you know what una corda is?
The left pedal doesn't really
It doesn't really work on the, okay, that's fine, no worries. So when you have a baby grand piano, when you're performing this, you could consider adding a little bit of the soft pedal right at the beginning of here, like this statement. You can add a little bit of the soft pedal to help you change the cover, but make sure that the soft pedal you're not pressing all the way down to the bottom, because we don't want it to be too muted. We just want a slight color change. Okay, now let's talk about the middle section. What do you feel when you get to the B section in terms of the mood, characters, or feelings?
So what's the B section?
Oh, okay, so we used ABA to describe a ternary form. So ternary form is a piece that has 3 sections. Do you notice that this piece that you played, towards the end, it's just like the beginning. But then in the middle of this piece, there's something very different. Yeah? So that's something very different. We would call that as the B section. And the outer sections that are very similar, they are the A sections. Okay? All right, so let's start from the B section, the middle section. What do you feel about, but I want you to describe to me first, like what do you feel about the character? How is it different than the beginning?
Because the first part is like, and this part is more like,
so you are saying the first one, what did you say?
so the first part is all running, and then the second part is more relaxed.
Oh yes, exactly. I'm really happy that you chose the word relaxed, because I literally wrote more relaxed here. But I think you can be even more relaxed. So here, how can we be more relaxed? I think your right hand is very nice and very relaxing, and it's your left hand. So here, the left hand needs to be a little bit lighter. Rather than, you know, if the left hand is so loud, then it's not going to sound relaxing, right? So let's try once more from the beginning of that section.
Okay.
Okay, Stephen, let's look at the left hand here, because the sound I think can still be a little bit better. So can you see my hand fine? Yeah. So down, and then when it's up, I want you to start on the keys. Up, 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 up. So it's soft rather than, I don't want you to attack from too high. So down, and then on the keys, up, 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 down, up, down, up, up. Always find the keys first with the chord, and then go up from the keys, not above the keys. Let's try that, just the left hand, and see how it feels for you.
Okay.
Okay, that's a little bit better. And then the first note doesn't need to be that heavy, because here, just a little bit emphasis already is enough. It doesn't need to be like at the A section where it doesn't need to be just, and we also have long pedal, right? So let's try this section one more time. Focus primarily your left hand. Down, up, up, but then on the keys with both hands together.
Okay.
Great job. I really love the left hand now. That's really good. Okay, great. Stephen, that's really good. I really love your left hand. It sounds very nice. The balance sounds good. Now, with the left hand, it's kind of like providing a background for our right hand's melody to soar and to sing. So here, I think what you want to work on is, it's not 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, because that would break it apart from having the linear line and also the vocal quality. So what you want to be thinking about is from the pickup. 1, 2, 3, dum, dee, dum, ba, ba. Imagine kind of like a scooping something out. Do you like ice cream? Maybe scooping the ice cream. Dee, dum, dee, dum, bum, bum. Rather than 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. But it should be 1, 1, 2. You see? Think about the third beat as a pickup to the downbeat. Okay, let's try that. And then make sure that the right hand is louder than the left hand. Good. Yes, very nice. You know, one other thing to make it even more comfortable to bring out that movement is you want to use your wrist. So one movement, one motion. So the third beat to the downbeat is one motion. Let's try that one last time.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Let's add the left hand this time. Okay, so let's talk, we have 2 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about how we transition to the next part where we have the bell. So I think you can take a little bit of the rubato, and then this part, you did a great job having the bell. Apparently there's a story that high grace note, A flat, resembles the bell on the little dog's necklace, or the color. And so you did a good job with that. But sometimes the melody suffers a little bit. So I would recommend you to practice, because we're using the thumb here. So practice with the thumb to make it to sound like it's played by one hand. So let's try that. Just get rid of the bell and only use your thumb. Bim bum, bing bum, and then 1, 5.
Okay.
Just the right hand with the thumb. Not that part. It's the part that you have the grace note. You see? The one that you have the A flat as a grace note.
Okay.
And then the lower note is harder to connect because we ended up only be able to use finger number 1, right? 1, 5, 1, and then 1, 5, 1. So I want you to work on using your thumb only, playing the E flat to A flat, E natural to F flat, but still shape it as though you were using 1, 3, 1, 3. Okay, does that make sense? So let's start from the part where you have the grace note, but don't play the grace note, just the bottom note.
Just the bottom part?
Yeah.
Okay.
But use 1-1. But let's use 1-1.
1.
Yeah, finger number 1-1. Yes. Good. Okay, now nice. Now can we add the pedal and make it sound like we're using 1-3, 1-3? But look at me, Stephen. I'm actually using 1-1. I'm shaping, but I'm only using my finger number 1. So let's try that with the pedal. Just 1-1, 1-1, and shape it nicely. Good, nice, nice. Now let's add the bell. Yes, now I can hear the melody very clearly, and I can hear that you are thinking about the melody going from da di dum di dum rather than dum dim ba bum bim ba bum bum. Now I can really hear that. It sounds really nice. One last thing to talk about is I know the time is running out, but I think the very final statement there. If you can have a pianissimo. Do you know what pianissimo is?
Yes.
Is it softer or louder than piano?
Softer.
Yeah, so you want to make that very, very, very soft. You can imagine that the dog ran really far away. You're only kind of seeing the shadow. Very, very soft. And then it ran towards you, so that's why it ended really grandly at the end. So let's just start right from there. Very, very, very softly.
From here?
No, from the very end where there's pianissimo.
Okay.
Great job. Excellent. Wonderful job, Stephen. You're doing so well. And so congrats. Thank you for playing today.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen, for joining us on Piano Star Masterclass. Have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Stephen.
Great. Okay, so we will jump right in to our next performer of tonight. His name is Henry. So,
Hi.
welcome, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
Hi.
Great
How
to
are
see
you?
you.
Good.
Good,
All right.
good.
Yeah.
Same deal. I'll be in the background.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, so Henry, I heard that you're going to play Claire de Lune. So I'm ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful, great job, so beautiful, and it's so poetic the way that you play it. I can tell that you must have a really good teacher that tells you all about the sound and WC's style. So it was really wonderful. Nice to hear you play. Okay, so do you know what the inspiration came from for WC for this particular piece?
The background or?
Yeah, so the background for this particular piece.
I think maybe it's in French, near the night, and it's a beautiful evening, and some guy maybe walking near the night. So.
Okay, so yeah, you described some scenery, so that's really nice. So he was inspired by this French poet, Paul Verlaine's poem, which actually is called Clair de Lune. Do you know what Clair de Lune means?
The moon.
Yeah, the moonlight. Okay,
Yeah.
so I just want to share with you the poem really quickly so you can kind of get an idea of how Debussy must have felt when he wanted to compose this poem for piano. And you know, he also set this poem to two other arrangements of voice and piano accompaniment. So that shows you how much he loves this poem. And Paul Verlaine is a symbolist poet. So at that time, symbolist basically means that, you know, things are implying meanings and it's not like really describing things concretely. So here is the point. Your soul is a chosen landscape where charming masquerades and dancers are promenading, playing the lute and dancing and almost sad beneath their fantastic disguises. While singing in a minor key of victorious love and the pleasant life, they seem not to believe in their own happiness. And their song blends with the moonlight, with the sad and beautiful moonlight which sets the birds in the trees dreaming and makes the fountains sob with ecstasy. The slender water streams among the marble statues. So here we can see that, you know, this poem is talking about an atmosphere of almost dreamlike, right? So they're describing this people. They seem not to believe in their own happiness, and their song blends with the moonlight. They're singing in the dark, and then their song blends with the moonlight, with a sad and beautiful moonlight. Note that he used sad twice actually in this poem. And he also used the word sob, fountain sob. So you can kind of tell this point is talking about a dreamlike state. It's beautiful, but it's also sad. They can't believe your happiness, and there's a minor key. Isn't it amazing that the poet was very educated, that he is able to tell the difference between major and minor key? So, with all of those keywords, you want to use them to make this piece even more expressive than you already are playing. So let's say, let's look at the opening. So I think with the opening, you want to be very aware of the fact that the first note doesn't start on the downbeat. We have, 9/8 for the key signature, the time signature, but then we have actually an 8th note rest. So he could very well just written this as the downbeat. But then it would make this too heavy. But we want to go to this one. So make sure in your mind you're very aware of the uplifting feeling. So it doesn't sound, there's no downbeat like feeling. It just goes bum, bum, bum. So let's try the very opening ones.
Okay.
Okay, so to me, I feel like just this first 4 measures, you can think about the feeling of breathing. So obviously, you're doing a nice subtle rubato, which is very fitting, because we can play this as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If it's exactly in time, it's going to sound completely unmusical. But I think you can incorporate the idea of breathing in and breathing out to fit with the subtle stretch of time that you have and the release. So that way you would actually match up with the harmony a little bit better. So right now I hear that you're taking time, but I don't necessarily hear that you are taking your time based on the left hand's harmonic structure. So for example, here we are in the tonic, and then this harmony next, it's very strange. So this is more dissonant, and then here we release, and then more, and then the next part, it continues a little bit longer. And then release, and then finally we release here. So you want to have the sense of breathing in, stretching out, and breathe out, and it all has to be very subtle, but you must listen to the harmony rather than just letting the right hand melody dictate where to take time. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah. So let's try the opening once more. Sorry to stop you again. Can you make the beginning much, much softer? Think about like if you are a painter, impressionistic painting, it's not very clear. Imagine you are painting with a big brush and you blend all those colors, you just use a big brush to paint it. But it's not very detailed. It's not like a color pencil, that kind of harder line. You know what I mean? It's just a brush of color. So not dun dun, but dun dun. Yeah. Nice, that's better. Okay, so that's really nice. I really love the first measure. The color was excellent. I would, just to make it a little bit more like precise in what I was talking about, breathing in, breathe out. So I think you need to resolve the harmony of measure 2 of your left hand, decrescendo to measure 3. So this one, must resolve to. So this cannot be louder. So make sure that one is softer. Let's try once more. Okay, so that was very nice. I think resolving that made a huge difference. So let's look at this part. Again, this is not the melody. Doesn't start on the downbeat. It's not. The left hand too. I think this needs to resolve here. So, for example, the measure before, and then soft here, rather than it's not a new beginning. It has a new feeling, new movement, new phrase, but it's not a new section. It continues from what we have before. So if you have, it sounded too boxed in, you know, it sounded, yeah. So make sure, softer, continue. And you can flow a little bit. It doesn't need to be very precise. It doesn't need to be. It can be. It's just like not only breathing and breathe out, but if you watch the water, imagine you go to the beach and there's moonlight shining on the ocean, and then the wave is kind of peaceful. It's not very big waves, and it's just going back and forth, and you can see the reflection of the moonlight. But wave is not still. It doesn't go right. It's sometimes it's a little faster, sometimes a little bit slower. It's not that I'm asking you to distort the tempo, but I need a little bit more of the subtle inflection of the speed a little bit. You know what I mean? That reflects more of the nature. Nature, sometimes it's not predictable, and it's always changing. So if it's possible, if you can make this more nature-like, life-like, more less scripted, less planned, that'll make this part sound a little more natural. So let's try from the measure before here. And make sure to resolve. Continue softly. Let's try from there. Sorry, Henry, could you start from the measure before so we can hear that this is, resolved. Yeah. Okay, very nice. I really love the rubato. I can really see, the moonlight and the reflection of the water. That's great. Now let's talk about here. When we finally got that nice D flat bass note. So far, everything is sort of in this higher register. And now we finally get to the bottom. So that bass is very important. But I want you to use the momentum a little bit more. So once we have the bass, we go up, but you don't need 3 separate emphasis. So it's not, use that as a momentum to swing back up. You know what I mean? So let's try that. Yeah, so be careful. This should still be in around the pianissimo range. It's a great momentum, but the volume was slightly too loud.
Okay.
Can we also try to voice a little bit more to the A flat? I think make the F much quieter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially the last one, because we already have the implication of the D flat major. We already have the harmonic support from the bass. So we can tell it's already a D flat major. But what we need is that moonlight sound on the top. So if you play that two equally versus, you for the last one, the highest one, you want to hear mostly the A flat. So make the F much quieter, okay?
Okay.
Wonderful, you played so well here. I love the octaves voicing. It's very beautiful. I love the phrasing, the rubato. One tiny suggestion I would have is where you just stop. I think this harmony is very sad. And if you can think about the sadder color and change the color there, you might help. So here. I think this is very nostalgic and very sad. If you can pay attention to the color here, that might make this long statement a little bit more interesting. Let's try from the measure before.
Yeah.
So, Henry, great job. I really love the sound. Here you have it's very clear. Now, my comment in this section where it says tempo rubato is that you can be a little bit more flexible and more, a little freer with the pushing back and forth. Because what I heard when you play through is that when we had more and more animated written, you're supposed to get a little bit faster, but you didn't really get a little faster. So when you got to the un poco mosso, it all of a sudden sounded like a brand new tempo. So we want to make sure that the change of the tempo is not so extreme that it sounds all of a sudden like a new movement. So what that means is that during this tempo rubato section, we want to gradually get a little bit faster. So what would prevent us from being able to get faster naturally is if we actually kind of attack the bass octave every single time. So you know how the top is actually already quite loud, it's only in pianissimo. It's already quite light, so we don't really need. If you want that for the first time, fine. But when we start to build up, let's say from I hope we have the same edition. Do you have the second system starting like this? Does your second system look like this?
Yeah.
Great. So from the second system, second measure there, you know how the left and octave start moving? Each measure. Da, da, We already heard the octaves being introduced previously in the past 4 measures. So here, we don't actually need to place that octave each single time. So not like this. Because that actually breaks the phrase progression up into tiny, tiny chunks. So what we want to do is, you can hear it, but so I'm not placing each one of them. I'm actually, you can still hear it, but I'm trying to think about it as continuing one line. And we don't need to it's not Rachmaninoff that we have to ring out the bass so strongly, you know what I mean? So let's try once more, right from the tempo rubato section. Excellent. That was so much better. And I think with starting from the second measure of the second system, with each time the left hand ascends, you can actually push the tempo a little bit. So do dum bum 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 bum, a little faster. Do dum da da dum bum 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 bum. Build up. Dum da 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 dun 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 dun. Once you get to that, then you can release. But before that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those 6 measures need to get a little bit faster each time. Can we start right from second system, second measure, and watch out for the pacing? Okay, very good. That's really nice. Just 2 tiny tips in terms of pushing the tempo. So when we are pushing the tempo, we want to make sure when we do get the longer note value, the dotted quarter notes in the third system, measure 2, that should not be rushed. So like I'm starting from the third system. So it shouldn't be. You shouldn't get cut short, but use the 8th note. And then when you finally get here, listen to the harmony. You can be a little more patient because it's kind of like the harmony dissipates or the color dissipates. It reminds me of some kind of magic, and then it sprinkles down like that. So, and then. And then so don't be in a hurry here, okay? You don't want to push it through. It's molto diminuendo. You have to get soft a lot, and you can also take a little bit more time. Enjoy the harmonies. Really listen to the sound blending into each other. So let's just try it from those 2 measures. that's wonderful. That's so beautiful. Great job. So we are running out of time, so I just kind of want to quickly talk about the rest of the piece. I think when you have all of those 16 notes underneath the beautiful, soaring, shiny melody, you want to work on making sure that they are very controlled in terms of your attack. They should be very even, but in the background. So they shouldn't sound notey. They are providing the color of the harmony, but if the underneath 16 notes are not 100% even, it will create almost an agitated feeling, okay? And I'm pretty sure that we don't want to be agitated when we are looking at the moonlight. Hopefully not. Now, one thing that I want to point out is when we go back to the tempo 1, you should probably have page 18. That should be on the page 18.
Where is it?
Yeah, so do you see the tempo 1? Going back to tempo 1 here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So here, it's a very interesting, almost like a recap, because we are expecting a D flat major, but because that's what has been going on the whole time. But remember, nature, the fact of the nature is that it's always changing. You know, we can predict, like we talked about already earlier. So here, it's still the same melody, but the harmony is different this time. This time it's actually in F minor. And so I think you should probably follow the pianissimo suggestion by playing this really, really softly and have a new color. When you got here, it was still sort of in the previous movement, that kind of feeling, and I didn't feel that you were calm when you reached here. So can we start just like 2 measures before tempo 1?
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so one way, that's great. So one way that you can do, you can see that there are like 16 notes underneath, right, for the previous 2 measures. What you can do is, you know, the harmony underneath is also changing. So, and then here, you can gradually slow down a little bit for the 16 notes. Sorry. So then you can actually naturally go down to the pianissimo without all of a sudden sounding like it's a brand new tempo. You know, you want to connect all those transitions a little bit more smoothly. So you can use the 16 notes. Gradually slow down so it's still evenly slowing down rather than all of a sudden like, you know, pressing down a break. Let's try once more, 2 measures before the tempo. Good.
Keep going.
See, okay, so here, this is another example of what I was telling you, how the melody is the same, but harmony is different. So pay attention to that. And, you know, with the accents there on the C flat, there's so many different ways to play an accent. You know, it doesn't always have to be with such a strong attack. Accent means that you have to bring out that note, that color. So, you know, here I don't necessarily think it's fitting if you go. It's a bit too jarring. I mean, if you want that, that's okay. But personally, I probably would take a little bit of time to bring out that C flat rather than having a fast attack. And then one last thing is, can we keep going from right there and then before you get to the last three stands, like systems, make sure that it's take a little bit of time. You might be a little too slow right now. I'm just trying to give you an idea. So this is the closing. Imagine that it's time to go to bed, and then this has movement, but it's not loud. This is not supposed to be busy, and when you first played it, it sounded too busy. You want to have movement, but it's underneath. It's kind of like, you know, ocean, the wave, sometimes even the surface is peaceful. Underneath, there's still the current. It's kind of like that. So let's try from the beginning of the last page.
Okay.
That was so beautiful, so beautiful. Very nice job. Just one tiny thing before we end this. Can you see the last system here? At the end of that measure, left hand only has one note, right hand only has one note. So the bare texture itself already make the notes and the intervals sound very clear. We don't really, what you were doing was you went, I can understand you kind of want to emphasize the 5-1 motion, but you don't actually need to place that. We can hear that because of how bare the texture is. Flat already, so you don't need to push so much on that A flat. But you did such a beautiful job. Thank you so much for playing today. It was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Henry, so much for being a part of the Piano Star Masterclasses. We hope that you learned a lot and enjoyed performing.
Yeah.
So thank you so much again. Bye, Henry.
Bye. Bye, Henry.
Thank you so much, Luan. I just really appreciate all the wisdom that you shared with us today, from the start talk about the online lessons, and then also teaching Stephen and Henry today. It was just so remarkable the way you teach, and I just feel like I learned so much from you personally too.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us on this program. It's wonderful what you guys are doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to our audience also, thank you so much for watching with us and sticking with us for another night. Be sure to check out our competition. I think it's the third time that I've mentioned this today. But it's really a wonderful opportunity for kids age 18 and under. So, and check out the rest of our Masterclass roster. We update every Tuesday. The website is thepianoleague.com. So with that said, and last but not least, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So that's everything I wanted to say. So happy practicing, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.